Hello, everybody. Hi. Hi, Margaret. Hi, Richard. Hi, Morgan. Hi. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, Kathleen. Hi, Renee. I can't see you, but I trust that you're there. Hi, Renee. Good to meet you. Is it Arafat? Yeah. Hello. I can't hear you, but welcome, welcome, welcome. And Pam. Welcome, Pam. Hi. Great. Great. Welcome, everybody. Apologies if you can hear like road noises. I'm quite near to the road, right in front of the window. So hopefully that won't disrupt your experience. Just going to keep letting everybody in. Some more folks are arriving. Welcome. Hello, Yanir. Welcome. Great. Yay, more people. Excellent. Let's wait another minute for folks to arrive. Okay. So welcome everybody to another Oak Saturday Sit. My name is Ryushin, or Ryu. I will be leading today's session. For those, has anybody never been to one of these before, or are you all old hats? You raise your hand if you've never been before. Hi, Colin. That's fun. Hey. Okay, so we all know the drill. We all know the setup of the event. I'll go over it just so it's in your heads and your consciousness. I'll lead a 10 to 15 minute guided practice. We'll be doing a little bit of samadhi practice, sort of nuzzling into well-being, settling the body, relaxing the body. Then I will give a little talk on the honey ball or Ball of Honey Sutta from the Majjhima Nikaya, the 18th discourse. And then we'll use that discourse and commentary as a jumping off point to do a longer practice based in the principles that we'll discuss and explore in the discourse. And then at the end, we'll have some time for discussion, question, and answer. So that's the thread of the day. And after we meditate, we'll have a little chance to check in as well. I should mention that, just to get our voices in. So without any more rambling on by me, let's do a little practice. So find yourself in some kind of posture that speaks to you of meditation. Ideally, you want to strike a balance between a sense of uprightness, alertness, and openness, relaxation. The posture itself speaking to the energized calm that we are seeking to amplify in our practice. Just feel the posture, feel your body. Come into your body. Open to your body. Perhaps reminding yourself that the only reason to do this practice is kindness. Kindness to yourself, kindness to the world. Allowing the heart to open a little bit or a lot. So with a concentration practice, like the one we'll be doing for the next 10 to 15 minutes, you can choose whatever object you like. Most common object is the breath or the body, but you can look at an object in the room. You can use sounds. The idea is to generate a sense of stability, coherence, and ease. And so choose an object. In this case, I'll be guiding using the breath and the body. And allow your attention to really be laid onto that object. Don't need to force it, but when it leaves, you get distracted, come back. And while you encourage this sense of stabilizing the mind, stabilizing the attention, I'll lead a guided relaxation, and you can use that guided relaxation as your primary practice, or you can just let it happen in the background and let your body relax. As we relax the body, the mind also stills. So relaxing the forehead. Allowing the tension that is in the forehead to just drain out down into the earth. Relaxing face, whatever mask you've been holding, just let it melt. Letting the face totally relax. Letting the lips relax, the tongue relax, chin. Any tension just draining out, draining out. Relaxing the neck and the throat. Relaxing the shoulders, the upper back. The upper chest. Upper arms. Lower arms, hands. As you relax, as you release tension, notice that it feels good to relax. Notice any sense of well-being or ease that starts to come, spaciousness. Give that space to. relaxing the heart, chest, letting the heart open. Sense of vulnerability, the ability to be touched. Shedding some of the armor. Allowing the heart to open. Relaxing the belly. Letting the belly just hang down to the floor. Allowing the tension to drain out, down into the earth. Allowing the sense of ease to really be there. Relaxing the back, the lower back. If you find yourself smiling a little bit, that's good. It can help the body relax. Relaxing the hip. And just letting whatever tension can drain out to drain out. No need to struggle here. The upper legs, lower leg, and the feet. The whole body relaxing. Whole body moving into a state of calm, peace, but also alert, bright, clear. Tuning in to any sense of stillness or well-being or release. Opening and welcoming that. Allowing the mind and the body to settle here. Allowing the heart to open here. Allowing yourself to enter into a state of rest here. the mind starts getting tangled up in thoughts, just relax, release. Going back to the breath or whatever object. Relaxing into this sense of stability. A peaceful abiding. It's one translation of shamatha practice. Calm abiding, peaceful abiding. A wholesome state. Deeply nourishing. Then, still staying in touch with this sense of presence and relaxation, you can open your eyes and come back into this shared space. One of the tricks of meditation is starting to kind of trouble the boundary between meditation and not meditation. And so really seeing if you can notice that there's not that much of a difference now that we've stopped meditating. Right? Can still relax the body, relax the mind. You notice it gets tangled up, just unhook, drop that ball. This kind of state is conducive to exploring the Dharma, which is what we'll be doing now. But first, we'll see if we can speak from this space. For me, I really enjoyed last week getting to hear just your name and getting a sense of who you are, just getting your voice in the space. And so I thought it'd be fun to have you all just share your name and one thing that you can see in your world that you'd like to share. So I'll go first and demonstrate. So as I said, my name is Ryushin, and I can see over there a like sign for a yarn shop. There's a ball of yarn on it. So maybe let's just go popcorn and let's try to be quick because there's actually a number of us. So whoever wants to go can go, and we'll just I'll go. You can pass, I suppose, but yeah, let's see who's here.
Hi, I'll go. My name is Margaret. I'm in Vermont, and I'm surrounded by my plants. Very much so surrounded. They're right here.
Oh, thanks, Margaret. Nice to see you.
Hello. First of all, I see all of you, and I'm happy to see you. And my name is Lynn, and this is
Bob.
And I'm looking at a beautiful vase of multicolored flowers to my left. Say what you're saying.
That's exactly what I was saying.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Yanir, San Jose. I see just a little series of pictures that of myself and my son.
Thank you. Welcome, Yanir.
Hi, everyone. It's Rich in Akron, second floor. And right over there is the setting sun. And it's just gorgeous. We actually had sun here in Northeast Ohio. First time since I think the end of November.
Beautiful. Welcome, Rich.
Hi, I'm Kathleen. I am in the land of the Snoqualmie people in Washington. And I am looking at a picture of the sun rising over Pleasant Bay in Cape Cod.
Welcome, Kathleen.
Hi, I'm Renee in Akron on the first floor where I can also see the setting sun. I remember more shine than the second floor for some reason. So that's what we have.
Thanks, Renee. So good to see you.
Hi, my name is Gergely with a spotty internet connection, so hopefully you can hear me. And I can see this very interesting tapestry on the wall.
I'm V, and in front of me I have a monolith of a pole dancing pole.
Cool. Welcome.
I'm Colin, and in front of me I see a white beam holding up another beam.
Great. Hey, Colin.
Hi, I'm Pam. I'm in Los Angeles area, and I really can see my iPad with all of you on it, and then some plants around it.
Great. Hi, Pam.
I'm Morgan. I'm in Heinsberg, Vermont, and I am most drawn to just seeing the expressions on everyone's faces. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Morgan.
Hello, I'm Christine, and I'm in up above the city of Los Angeles, where it's very beautiful, and there's a lot of rolling hills and no trouble, just a lot of beauty.
Welcome. Okay, well, I think I will do a going once, going twice, and you don't have to go if you prefer not to for whatever reason. And then going 3 times, sold. Okay, so welcome, 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 everyone. It's really lovely to have you here. And how are you doing with maintaining this sense of calm and energy as we engage with each other and with our own acts of speech? Much more challenging, I find. Much more complicated, but doable, so I'm told. So let's keep striving. So today we're going to be exploring one of my favorite discourses, the Ball of Honey Sutta, or the Honey Ball Sutta. Again, it's from the Majjhima Nikaya, discourse number 18. I'm curious, did anybody have a chance to read it, or has anybody read it? Can you raise your hand if you did? Okay, well, I will, it looks like a little bit. Margaret, great, fantastic. Well, I will kind of give like a Cliff Note summary in my own linguistic turns of phrases and stuff, and then I will give a little bit of commentary and try to make it very relevant to your practice today, in the practice that we're going to do together today. So the Ball of Honey discourse opens, as so many of the Buddhist discourses do, with the Buddha returning from his alms round of the day and going to sit at the root of a tree for his daily abiding, which is just a lovely turn of phrase that you see everywhere in the Pali Canon. Again, interesting relationship with the word shamatha, which means calm abiding or peaceful abiding, but it basically means he's going to go sit at the base of a tree and feel really nice and relaxed and kind of just get his daily dose of letting go. And all the monks were recommended to do this. You see this phrase, the daily abiding, all over the canon. And sometimes I think of my meditation practice as my daily abiding. Although at Oak, Maple, we do 2 daily abiding, so we're greedy in that way. And so he's there. He's sitting at his underneath his tree, and a fellow named Dandapani, which means stick in hand, Dandapani the Sakyan, asks the Buddha. He comes to the Buddha while he's sitting at the tree and asks him, "What is your doctrine? What is the contemplative's doctrine? What are you proclaiming? What are you teaching?" And now, if you read the cliff notes in the sutta, this fellow Dandapani is a bit of a character. He's a bit of an ostentatious fellow. The reason he's called stick in hand is because he carries around a golden walking stick with him everywhere he goes, even though he's young and healthy. He's just a kind of eccentric person. And this question is a little bit aggressive. He's like coming up to the Buddha when he's sitting, and he's like, "What do you teach? Tell me about it," right? And so the Buddha responds very skillfully, as he always does, and he says, "I teach the sort of doctrine, friend, where one does not keep quarreling with anyone in the cosmos, with its devas, maras, and brahmas, with its contemplatives and brahmins, its royalty and its common folk, the sort of doctrine where perceptions no longer obsess the Brahmin who remains dissociated from sensuality, free from perplexity, his uncertainty cut away, devoid of craving for becoming and non-becoming. Such is my doctrine, such is what I proclaim." And so when Dandapani the Sakyan heard this, he shook his head, wagged his tongue, raised his eyebrows so that his forehead was wrinkled in 3 furrows, and left, right? Because basically, Dandapani went looking for a little bit of a fight. He wanted to kind of get the Buddha. And the Buddha said, "Well, look, I teach no conflict with anyone. You're not going to get what you're looking for here." And then Dandapani, peaced out. He was frustrated. And so he left. Later, the Buddha goes and shares the story with his bhikkhus, with the monks. And they say, "Well, how do we become the kind of person who is not in conflict, who does not quarrel with anything, anyone in the cosmos?" And the Buddha responds. He says, "If, monk, with regard to the cause whereby the perceptions and categories of objectification or papancha assail a person, there is nothing there to relish, welcome, or remain fastened to, then that is the end of the obsessions of passion, the obsessions of resistance, the obsession of views, uncertainty, conceit, passion for becoming, and ignorance. That is the end of taking up rods and bladed weapons, of arguments, quarrels, disputes, accusations, divisive tale-bearing, and false speech. That is where evil, unskillful things cease without remainder." The Buddha, having said this, stood up and left and went to his hut and rested. And the monks said, "Well, that seems really inspiring and great, but I don't get it. I don't get what do you mean by that?" And so they went and found another monk, Mahakachana, who is proclaimed by the Buddha to be a master at kind of expounding and giving detailed meanings. And they asked Mahakachana, what exactly did the Buddha mean when he said this? And first, Mahakachana kind of reprimands them. And he's like, you just got an answer from the Buddha. And now you're asking me, like, well, you should have listened to the Buddha when he answered you. But then after having said that, he gave another answer, a more detailed answer. And this is the kind of bulk of this sutta. So he said, well, so how do we become the kind of person who is not in conflict with anything or anyone? And he says, he goes through a couple of versions of this. He says, dependent on I and forms, I consciousness arises. The meeting of these three is contact. The meeting of eyes, like the sense base of the eye, forms, things that you see, and I consciousness is contact. With contact as a condition, there is feeling. When there is feeling, there is perception. When there's perception, one thinks about what one is perceiving. And what one thinks about, one proliferates, one objectifies. And then based on that, based on what somebody proliferates, the perceptions and categories of objectification assail him or her with regard to past, present, and future. Basically, we're lost in a sea of tangled thinking and confusion, and then we suffer. Right? And then he goes through all the different sense bases, right? Dependent on the body and feeling, there is, and feeling consciousness, there is contact. Dependent on the ears and sounds and ear consciousness, there is contact. In all the sense bases, there is this movement of the emergence of perception and the tangling up, the papancha, the proliferation of suffering and thinking and confusion. So then he says, now, when there is no I, and there are no forms, and there is no I consciousness, it is impossible that there will be contact. When there's no contact, there can be no feeling. When there is no feeling, there cannot be perception. And when there is no perception, there's no thinking. And when there's no thinking, you can't get tangled up. There's no objectification. There's no papancha. There's no proliferation of conceptualization. You're free. You're free. Yes. So that's essentially the discourse, right? The reason it's called the Ball of Honey Sutta is because at the end, Ananda, the Buddha's right-hand man, so to speak, says to the Buddha, after hearing this, says, just as if a man or woman exhausted by hunger and weakness were to come upon a ball of honey, wherever he would taste it, he would find a sweet, delectable flavor. So too, Venerable Sir, any able-minded monk, any able-minded practitioner, wherever he might scrutinize the meaning of this discourse, would find satisfaction and confidence of mind. And the Buddha said, well, let that be the name of this discourse then, the Ball of Honey discourse. Very good, Ananda. Right? And so that's how it came to be called the Ball of Honey discourse. And so in this sutta, we are being presented with a kind of map of causality, a map of the process by which we, out of ignorance, create suffering for ourselves. And throughout the Pali Canon, there's actually different maps, all of which have a little bit of a different order. They don't all go contact, feeling, perception, thinking like this one does, but there are all these maps of causality, and they're all sort of trying to say the same thing, more or less. And I'll get into that, but we're being asked to see the process by which we become assailed by thoughts and that we get pushed around by our experience such that we suffer. And the sutta is asking us to see that this is, one, a causal process. meaning it's like it's lawful, right? It's lawful. It's not just kind of how do we say, random, or it's not like inexplicable. It's lawful. We can intervene. It happens according to conditions and causes. And two, that this is actually something that we can do differently. And that we ourselves, out of ignorance, are participating in this causal process in such a way that we're creating suffering and disease for ourselves. Specifically, ignorance of the nature of that causal process, dependent origination. So, as many of the discourses in the Pali Canon are, this discourse is about dependent origination. It's about the causal process that the Buddha said, the understanding of which is to see the Dharma. To see dependent origination is to see the Dharma. To see the Dharma is to be liberated. It's quite important. So, when we say sit down to meditate in our daily abiding and are immediately beset by thinking and the correlate tension in the body, and we feel kind of like thrown around in the sea of our experience, we might wonder at times, like, why is this happening? How can I escape what seems to be this sort of endless process of what the Buddha called samsara? And now there can be, of course, many methods that we can use to respond to our suffering. Therapy, we can talk to a friend, we can get a massage, we can get some exercise. But the trump card, the thing that will solve all of our problems, is letting go. Right? This is the crown jewel of approaches to alleviate our suffering. Letting go solves all our problems. There is no problem that it does not solve. And that's why the Buddha really attempts to teach us, this is the skill, this is the way of looking that you must master for your own freedom and well-being. So central to this sutta, the kind of one of the main concepts besides dependent origination, is this idea of papancha. I'm curious if people could raise their hand. Have you heard of this word papancha? Is this something that you're familiar with? It's getting more popular in the Western Buddhist scene. Yeah, a little bit, a couple people. Cool. So papancha, when I first learned this word, basically means like needless thinking, like thinking that doesn't do anything, doesn't help anyone, and more or less just causes suffering and confusion. In Zen Buddhism, they have this word mozo, which just means like totally meaningless thinking, just thinking for the sake of thinking. It just wears you out, doesn't go anywhere. It's not wholesome. It's just thinking, right? So a lot of this discourse is about how to end that helpless papanchaizing that our minds, that the human mind, the untrained mind, tends to do helplessly. Now, it's a very interesting word, this word papancha. And I think it can tell us a lot about what is being pointed to if we look at how different translators translate it. So Thanissaro Bhikkhu, which is the translator of the version of the sutta that's linked to in the email we sent out, translates papancha as objectification, to make an object out of something, to make it like, to reify it, to make it real. Ajahn Sujato translates it as proliferation, and Bhikkhu Bodhi translates it as conceptual proliferation. So he specifically wants to talk about concepts. Other words that they use are self-reflexive thinking, complication, elaboration, distortion, and reification. And it also says in the sutta that all of this leads to notions arisen from that proliferation. And this is the self-reinforcing feedback loop of delusion. You get confused because you're confused. Now, as meditators, we know this can last for a minute, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, a day, a month, years, lifetimes, right? And cutting through this, learning how to end that process of needless, unhelpful complication, papancha, is really the core training and teaching of this path. And that can get more and more and more and more subtle. So that's kind of like the problem that this sutta is pointing to, this problem of papancha, right? This problem of helpless, unnecessary thinking that causes suffering. And it's also presenting a kind of like map of how you free yourself from that. So when Mahakachana presents this formulation of, so when there's no I and no forms and no I consciousness, it's impossible to be assailed by papancha. It just cannot happen. There's no way. It's kind of like obvious in a sense. Like if you're not perceiving, you're not suffering, right? Because suffering depends on perception. It almost sometimes lands as a little bit like, so what, actually? But the implication is that you can, in fact, move in the direction of less and 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 less. And as you do, there's less and less and less and less and less suffering. And more and more freedom and well-being and openness and open-heartedness. And it's harder and harder to get into conflict with rods and stabs and all of that. And so what Mahakachana is doing here, one thing he's doing, is he's pointing to what we might call the generator or the generator function of papancha and of suffering. Or we might say he's pointing to the root, the very root of our suffering. Right? So when we go to therapy or when we like get a massage or eat a nice meal, we're in this metaphor sort of like trimming back the hedges of our suffering. Right? We're like kind of like making sure it doesn't get too overgrown, too crazy. But what Mahakachana and the Buddha are suggesting is that instead we drive towards the root. We actually go to the base of the tree, we dig it up, and we just uproot the whole thing. The whole thing. Because without perception, there's no suffering. Or more specifically, we could say that the generator function, the root of suffering and mental proliferation is clinging. Is clinging. It's clinging. Or so last week, if you were here, I know a number of you were, I shared the Ajahn Chah quote. If you let go a little bit, you will know a little bit of peace. If you let go a lot, you'll know a lot of peace. And if you let go completely, you will know the complete peace of the Buddha. And we could kind of play with that a little bit and say something like, if you cling a little bit less, you'll know a little more peace. If you cling a lot less, you'll know a lot more peace. And if you just completely stop clinging, you will know the peace of the Buddha. Right? You will know the peace of the Buddha. The Buddha says this in a different way in the verses that I read, where he says, if nothing in the process of experience is found to delight in, to welcome, or to hold on to fasten to, the underlying tendencies towards suffering, towards the defilements, will come to an end. And so he's saying there again, if you can release clinging, let go, this whole show will come to an end. And that includes suffering. And so it's, from a kind of doctrine perspective, it's extremely important to see, and also from our practice, it's important to see that this whole show, everything we experience, our perception, our whole world, as far as we can tell, runs on and is fueled by clinging. So there's a great Carl Jung quote where he says that desire is the cosmogonic force. It gives birth to the cosmos, right? When we desire, we build the world. Insofar as we cling, we build the world of our perception, the world of forms, the world of complexity, the world of confusion. And so when we learn to release desire, release clinging, subtract it from the equation of our experience, our whole world, in fact, begins to fade. This is what Soryu calls the path of less. Less and less and less and less and less. And so one way that you can model this, I think it is helpful to model this sometimes, is you can on the one hand have this process of papancha, which we could use other words like objectification, reification, thingification, solidification, coagulation, right? Kind of like making things into things that the mind does on one end of the spectrum. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have this movement towards emptiness, nebulosity, openness, indiscernibility, or one of my favorites is unfindability, right? This quality where things start to just unravel and unbind. And there's this spectrum that we can travel through skillful participation in our perception that takes us all the way from, you know, the most egregious example of objectification and reification would be like, I'm in a tantrum, and I'm angry at you for very real reasons, right? And me is angry. This me is angry, right? So that's like you can go pretty far in that direction. And I'm sure that we've all experienced times when you know everything seems very real and the whole world turns on me and you and this situation, and it's very real and very important, right? That's like a highly, you might say, objectified or thingified experience, very reified. And we can travel all the way to less. As soon as you start to enter into a state of meditation, like the one I guided today, and you relax your body, things start to flow a little bit, you know, it's just like, there's like less self. You're traveling a little bit on this journey towards less and less and less. And so it's, you know, this thread of the movement from reification to emptiness or nebulosity, that's the whole game as far as I can tell. That's the journey of the path of liberation. And each point on that path, like the Ajahn Chah quote, you know, you do a little bit less objectification, you'll know more peace, you'll know more peace. You do a lot less, you travel pretty far on that spectrum, you will know a lot more peace. If you find yourself all the way to the end of that spectrum, you will discover the complete peace of the Buddha. And that's one of the parts of the doctrine that people often, I think, find surprising or kind of hard to fathom, perhaps appropriately. So there is actually an end to that spectrum, right? There's an escape from the whole spectrum. You can completely release. You can completely release. And this is where Mahakachana can say something like, well, friend, if there's no I consciousness, no forms, no I, there's no problem, right? It's all the way off the spectrum. It's gone. The Buddha says, gone beyond the world. He says, if you have not come to the end of the world, I tell you, you have not seen the Dharma, right? The end of the world, the complete going beyond, complete unfabricating of experience. So that's like a model that we can use to sort of like get a sense of where we go when we meditate, or where we're aiming. We're aiming in this direction of less, of fading, of unfabricating, of letting go. And so then the question becomes, of course, well, like, how do we actually travel on that spectrum? What do we do? How do we act? How do we do this? How do we travel along the spectrum? And so I'll just read Thanissaro Bhikkhu's commentary for this discourse. So he says, how can this process of samsara and papancha be ended? He says, through a shift in perception caused by the way one attends to feelings and experience using the categories of appropriate attention. As the Buddha says in Digha Nikaya verse, Discourse 21, rather than viewing a feeling as an appealing or unappealing thing, one should look at it as part of a causal process. Right? One should look at it as part of a causal process. So if you were here last week when I talked about ways of seeing, ways of looking, as being kind of one way of understanding what meditation is, what's being suggested here is that we take on a way of looking at our experience that starts to just see it as this causal happening. It's just like functioning as a result of causes and conditions. When you really start to see that things are just a causal process, there's not space for me to interfere. What would it mean? I'm just a causal process. Like what good is my interference? It doesn't actually make sense. It starts to dissolve the whole sense of me interfering or me doing X, Y, or Z. And as that starts to dissolve, we start to release our craving and aversion for things happening a certain way. It's just causal processes. It's just happening. It's just happening. And as we let go of craving and aversion, things start to fade. We start to travel on this spectrum of emptiness, of fading, of less. And so that's one way of practicing according to this discourse, is that whatever arises in our meditation, we see, this is just a causal process. It's just coming and going. It's just, as we said last week, one way of seeing it is the cause of anything is everything. Or as Carl Sagan has said, in order to make an apple pie, you first have to create the universe, right? So it's not just saying like Newtonian physics causality. It's this sense of like, it's just traveling. It's just going. It's just happening. Just like I can see a tree outside. It's just, if I could speed up time, I would see it being born, bearing fruit, dying. Everything is like that. It's just happening. It's coming. It's going. I don't need to try to do anything about it. It doesn't make sense from that way of looking. It doesn't make sense. So when I'm in this way of looking, I can just release and just let go Just let things happen. Just causes and conditions going on. And in that, you can find the beauty of release and relief and liberation. So, all that being said, that's the Ball of Honey discourse. And that's a little bit of a kind of commentary on it. So we're going to practice. We're going to do exactly what I just suggested we do and kind of try to see our experience as a causal process together, see what that does. Yeah. But before we jump into practice, I'm curious if there are any like questions, if I was vague or very unclear, things that you'd want to clarify before we jump in. We will have time at the end for question and answer if it's not urgent right now. Wow, okay. I'm always surprised. I feel like I don't know what I'm saying, so this is great. either you're being polite or it actually made sense. That's great. Okay, cool. So we're gonna sit for about 30, 35 minutes or so, maybe 40 minutes. So get this. I don't have a bell, unfortunately, so I'll bring you out, in and out with my voice. Again, as you enter into meditation without a bell, it can be actually easier to trouble that dichotomy between meditation and non-meditation. So now, suddenly you're meditating. For some reason, now you're meditating. Just kind of notice that there's not really a difference. You can close your eyes or gaze softly in front of you. For the first 10 minutes or so, we'll do a little bit more of the shamatha practice, the calm abiding practice. Before we do that, touching into your aspiration. Towards what end? Why are you here? Why are you practicing? You can ask your heart, ask your soul, ask your mind. Could be to know peace, could be to know beauty, could be to suffer less, to feel more joy. You find what it is for you today. Let that ring out, resonate in your being, connecting with our aspiration can give us energy, can straighten our back, help us generate the determination to practice. So take a few minutes or moments to find yours. Then when you're ready, bringing your attention to your body. Noticing any sensations. Noticing the feeling of breathing. Bringing your attention now to a spot a few inches below your belly button. Seeing if you can feel the breath coming in and through this area, spot. What's it like to experience the breath coming and going from this spot? Sensitive to the body, sensitive to the energy body. Maybe sensing into this question of how would the body like to be breathed here? What way of breathing would be most supportive, most nourishing, most easeful? Perhaps it's a long, slow breath, or a shorter breath. Is it possible to find a way of breathing that really feels good, comfortable, kind of nice? Again, with this practice now, we're leaning into stability and calm while not losing the brightness and energy of our attention. And we're playing with breathing in whatever way supports that. We can play with narrowing our focus or opening it up. Play with sort of feeling like you're receiving the breath. Feel like you're receiving the breath. Or like you're going to the breath, riding the breath. And if you like, shifting your attention to the heart area. Again, imagining or sensing the breath coming in and going out through this area. You want a kind of felt sense, somatic sense. The breath entering into the heart area. What's it like to breathe in here? does the body want to be breathed here? You being curious, playful. Can use the breath to soothe the body, to open the body, to energize the body. What's appropriate now for you? Playing with the breath and the body. Nudging towards a sense of ease, stability. Start getting tense anywhere, you can just relax. Let that tension drain out. Settling the mind, calming the body. And if there is a sense of well-being or comfort or warmth somewhere in the body, sort of nuzzle into that. We take that in, lean into it, enjoy it. It doesn't have to be anything to write home about. It could be pretty subtle. Could be very easy to miss. The mind will naturally stabilize with a sense of comfort or ease. start getting tangled up in papancha, just let go and bring your attention to the breath, to a sense of relaxation. Allowing the mind to settle. Allowing the body to relax to a very natural state of awake ease, peaceful abiding. Now, for the next 15 minutes or so, if you wish, you can join me in exploring this way of looking, of seeing all of this as a causal process. It's just happening. If you don't know where to look, you can choose either sounds or body sensations. Just notice the way that they're just happening, just causal process. Like a tree blossoming, a cloud forming and dissolving, shooting star. Just a play of forms. Just happening. Regarding your focus space in this way. You get lost in papancha and thinking. You can try seeing that that too is just a causal process. That the thoughts are thinking themselves. Or you can come back to the body, to the breath. Either way, letting go. Either way, relaxing this grip. This grip of me and mine. This grip of trying to control the world. If you start getting agitated or caught by something, notice what happens if you regard it as a causal process. It's just happening. It's not about you. No more than a flower blooming is about you, or a flower dying is about you. Just natural causal processes. All of this. It's just happening. It's not about me. Nature unfolding. All of this. Just nature unfolding, just the play of form happening. No need to interfere. No need to get worked up. No need to figure it out. No need to control or manipulate. It's just happening. Again and again, the natural habit of the mind is to get caught up, to papanchize, to objectify, to thingify. When you notice that, regard that whole situation as just happening. It's just the universe congealing for a little bit. And then watch as the universe lets go, releases. Relaxes. This whole play of forms is just happening. Endlessly bursting forth, mysteriously. No control. Notice as you look in this way what it does for the body, what it does for the heart. Notice that it feels good to let go. Feels good to not be in conflict. Notice any tension in your body, relax. Often find tension in the face, forehead. As we come close to the end of this period of practice, checking in with the heart. One of my teachers says that the whole of the practice is the art of caring for the human heart. And so checking in with the heart and seeing if there's a little more openness now. A little more kindness, a little bit more heartfulness. And seeing if there's anything your heart is yearning for. Could be connection or love or peace, and extend that, offer that to your heart. Extend that which only you know you need, your heart wants, longs for. The Buddha says that more than any other being in the universe, it is you who deserves your compassion, your love. Then when you're ready, you can open your eyes and extend some of that heartfulness to the others here. These faces all over the country, all over the world. So thank you all for playing along. And now for the last chunk of time, we'll do a discussion, Q&A, talk about the Dharma, talk about the Ball of Honey Sutta, talk about our practice. Whatever you'd like to share, you can share your experience, you can have a question, you can, whatever you like. It's an open period of time to get our voices in and our hearts in. Yeah. I suppose I do have a curiosity if nobody has a question, which is, did that work for folks? Like the kind of taking on this way of looking, seeing things as causal. Did you notice an opening? Did you notice a letting go? How was it? Did anybody? I'll be honest, I kind of made that up a little bit. I do that on my own, but I made it up for myself. And so it's, I don't know if like my world works differently so much than perhaps yours did. And so I'm curious if it felt useful.
It was very useful. There's always a sense when someone is guiding from their own practice, that it invites me in and it expands. So, yeah,
Cool.
it's
Thanks
great.
for sharing. Thanks, Renee. Cool.
So I also, one of the reasons I didn't feel confused, where you thought maybe, y'all should be confused because I'm making this up, was that it, I connect this immediately, and it's probably just because it's really similar to the Anathapindika Sutta, where, I mean, that's what Shariputra was telling Anathapindika. That was exactly the same process. So, not that and if I studied every minute of every day for whatever time is the rest of my life, I would still be a functionally illiterate Buddhist. But I remember that in this group.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. Totally. Yeah, I mean, it's there when you look for it all over the canon. It's a good point. I guess I'm being a little unfair to myself to say I completely made it up, but yeah, it's true. Thank you, Renee. It's a good point. Yeah. Anybody else have anything to question, something they want to share, whatever? Space is all of ours.
I'll ask a quick question. I don't know if I was the only one, but I would love to hear the two questions and the two answers one more time.
From the sutta?
Yeah.
Oh,
because
yeah,
I'm
totally.
more elementary. And then what I wanted to share was that it was very hard for me initially when I was thinking about this notion of being causal. But then because of the silence, and you had mentioned the traffic outside, suddenly it sounded like a motorcycle going by, and it came and it went. And that it was so amazing because what I then realized is I could just refer that to myself. In other words, that I could see myself in that same way.
Yes.
And so, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's perfect. It's perfect. Yes. So that's exactly how I actually got my first kind of taste of this, was sitting out in the woods, looking at like squirrels running across a log, actually. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, that is not different than this. And it's just, oh, I don't have to be so worked up about it. It's perfect. That's great. Thank you for that share, Morgan. And so I'm not sure what you're asking for with regards to the two questions and two answers. Do you mean like what I read at the beginning of the whole thing? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I can read those. Maybe it will ring out differently now that we've kind of discussed it and practiced together. So the first question that Dandapani asks is, what is the contemplative's doctrine? What is your doctrine, Buddha? And what are you proclaiming? And the Buddha says, the sort of doctrine, friend, where one does not keep quarreling with anyone in the cosmos, with its devas, maras, and brahmas, with its contemplatives and brahmins, its royalty and common folk. The sort of doctrine where perceptions no longer obsess the one who remains dissociated from sensuality, free from perplexity, his uncertainty, her uncertainty cut away, devoid of craving for becoming and non-becoming. Such is my doctrine, such is what I proclaim. Yeah. So good. Nice. Yeah, anybody else? Anything else?
I just want to say that's the part where I get lost, just completely lost. Once again, in the same exact spot, I couldn't follow that.
Is there a particular point at which you feel yourself getting lost?
I can't even describe it. That's how lost I became.
It took me reading through this like 3 or 4 times pretty slowly to really feel like, oh, I think I kind of get it. My experience of the Pali Canon in general is that it really demands quite slow reading. Otherwise, it just like goes right through me, frankly. And I would also say it demands a certain state of mind. That's partly why I think it's so good to open with 10 minutes of practice. Like I did a 75-day solo retreat where I had the discourses with me, and it was amazing. A month in, I could read them, and it was just like lighting me up, right? Because I was in the kind of stream of the sort of mind that this just made intuitive sense. And so there's also something to be said for like kind of getting yourself sort of set right, actually doing some practice before you read these texts so they can sort of penetrate you or kind of hit you in the way that I think that they want to hit you. Yeah. Otherwise, like often if I just sit down to read it and I'm just like in the midst of my day, must be like a foreign language sometimes. I'll be like, what is this? What are you trying to say? Just speak English. Yeah.
Now, I'll speak to that point. I'm just about 3 hours from finishing the Shinzen retreat, the 10-day retreat. And this is what I wanted to do, is to be with my other Sangha here. And so 10 days at home with the Sangha, listening to that was very applicable to what I had been working on. And trying all kinds of techniques, tried a lot of different ones for the thing that's ailing me now, the challenge. And this was yet one more. And like, what a revolution to think of this as not a problem, that it just to be a cause of events. And I think that's going to be really helpful because I suspected that I wasn't going to be able to figure it out. I sure have tried with therapy and different techniques to figure it out, tried lots of ways, can't figure it out. And then I got a lot of different ideas on how to try it, and I tried them all. And one was actually auto, just go to the computer and let my fingers know how to type my name, P-A-M. And then to take that just happeningness, bounce of my fingers, and then to look for the information that I needed. And then, but this one, what really got me was how one thought about this project proliferated another, which the feelings came, the worry came, the, oh my God, Monday's almost here came, and I could drop that. But I couldn't drop that because Monday's coming. But yes, I could. Yes, I can. I can feel what it's like in my body. You asked how it felt. Every time I dropped it, I thought, this is how I want to feel. And what if I could lead up to Monday coming back to this? I know that I'll get involved, but then I can keep coming back. So I highly recommend 10 days of meditation before hearing something like this. It's great to see everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. That's lovely. Yeah, for me, it's been so helpful to kind of map like letting go or unfixating from something to my body, where I'm like, oh, this is actually what it feels like in my body to let go. And there's some kind of like somatic process that then makes it just much more like visceral. I'm like, oh, yeah, just let go. Okay, I can tell I'm clinging because my body feels like,
that is such a good point to tell the difference in the body, because I was certainly watching that the whole time.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I, like other people, was doing about 75% retreat, 25% working. And to have those two things right there across the hall, like literally walking into my office. And I tried to do the bulk of that 25% working right before the long sit. So many days I sat for an hour and a half with the feelings associated with the troubles I was having.
Yeah.
And that was good. And this would be the time we'd be doing it too. So this feels great. And I'm very glad to meet you. I heard that you were coming and look forward to seeing you for the time you're here with us.
Oh, thank you, Pam.
You.
It's great to meet you too. Yeah. Good. Yeah, one of my favorite little practices, I've been teaching this to people at the Vermont location. I think it's from Locke Kelly. I don't know if people here know about Locke Kelly, but one of the things that he talks about is how there's like the problem making function of the human mind. It's just like one way of thinking about what a mind is just like looking for problems. And in looking for them, it's making them, right? Where they aren't, or they don't have to be. And so he has this practice, which is we can do it right now all together. You look and you ask yourself, what's here right now if there's no problem? What's here right now if there's no problem? And my perception immediately just opens up. It's kind of lightness. It's like almost my mind doesn't know what to do. What's here if there's no problem? It's very easy. It's a great disruptive practice if you kind of find yourself like getting looped. Just ask that question. And suddenly there's no problem. Yeah, it's really good. Cool.
Thank you, Ryu. I appreciated the way you taught the arising and falling away of form. While I'm well aware of impermanence, oftentimes that's something that happens to other people. So I have an otherness relationship with that, right? But today I really experienced that, and it was something about the way, I think also the way that you talk about the rising and falling away in nature. And because I'm sitting here with all my plant friends who I watch them doing that all week, all the time. And so it became more intimate for me. I could see that it's the same for me as it is for them. I'm not that different. And so I really appreciate that. And right before I came to this sit, I've been on staycation for about 3 weeks. So one of the things I really wanted to do while I was here was to go through this box of stuff that I have in my room that I've had for a really way too long time in my room. And I began to go through the stuff, and I opened up and I came to, some cards and some letters and some writings, all about a period of time in my life that was extremely painful about 35 years ago. And it went, first I got kicked in the stomach and then shot an arrow through my heart. And I just took the whole thing and dumped it in the trash. And it's like, I have to let that go. I can't even re-experience it. And so I was actually shocked by it. And so I immediately came to my chair and said, well, the only thing I can possibly do right now is breathe, or this is going to completely overwhelm me. And so your teaching on the other end of that has been super helpful. And I feel much recovered from my shock. And and I'm okay with letting it go.
Mm.
And I don't need to relive any of that stuff.
Mm.
And I'm glad it didn't happen. So once again, mindfulness meditation has been very good to me.
Oh, beautiful share, Margaret. Thank you so much for sharing that story. Yeah. 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 And I think one thing that comes up too for me is like, it's not, the goal is not always to see everything as if it's causal, right? It's a way of looking that we can pick up and put down. And in fact, one of the failure modes, I think, of spiritual practice can be thinking that you ought to always see in that way, right? That you should always see like things are impermanent and not self. It's actually, it's a skillful way of looking in your kind of toolbox of ways of approaching your life. Because when it comes to things like ethics and morality and like emotional healing, actually we need a self, and often we need choice, and that's outside of, and like, you know, so we got to be discerning about how we dance with life and not be beholden to just one method. So sometimes it's good to pick up our memories, and sometimes it's good to just throw them away. Just throw them away. And it's beautiful to have the freedom to do all of those. That's where the real beauty and fun, I think, comes in. Yeah. Thank you so much, Margaret. Beautiful story. Hmm. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you all. It's a real joy to host this event. And I'm thinking, unless there's any questions or shares, maybe we can do a little bit of metta practice together to end this event. So again, we'll do the same thing we did last week because I really enjoyed it, which is first we'll go in and sort of start generating some loving kindness. And maybe you have a way that you do that. I like to do puppy metta, where I imagine puppies, because that just immediately gets my heart feeling really, okay, it's already happening, kind of just happy and lovely. I just love them so much. They're so cute. Right? And then you take that somatic feeling of love, well-wishing, whatever amount is there, and start to open your eyes and send it to one of the people in this call, if you have it on gallery mode. You just look at them and wish them well. May you be happy. May you be peaceful. May your life be easeful, full of joy. May you know freedom in this life. This one person here. Just kind of, imagine a beam of love and well-wishing coming from your heart into their world. And as you're doing this, not stopping doing this, also become aware that it's very likely that somebody is sending you this metta right now too. Somebody on this call is loving you as you're loving this person. Feel that. Feel yourself being loved as you love this other. Then you can even expand from that and know that others are sending metta to others. And in a sense, it's quite likely that you are indirectly sending metta to everybody on this call by sending metta to this one person. And that you're receiving metta from everybody on this call as you're receiving it from one person. Let's see if you can kind of tune into the beauty and grace of that. If it brings your heart joy, that's good. That's great. Cool. Okay, well, thank you all so much. This is a really lovely experience. If you have any feedback, or if you have, as I said last time, like requests about suttas we could look at or concepts, really open to that, would love that. I got this sutta when I was at the Vermont Center, and I just stood in the middle of the room and said, somebody give me a sutta to talk about. And Ryushin, Lauren Lee, just said, Ball of Honey Sutta. And that's how we came to be here today. So I take requests. I'm really interested in what you're interested in. And yeah, thank you so much for coming, and thank you so much for your practice. It's really beautiful to be with others who care deeply about purifying the mind and heart and loving the world in service. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day, wherever you are. Blessings to you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all.
Thank you. Where's
Bye
the
now.
rest of the group?
Oh, they are meditating about a 20-minute walk away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they'll be here next week, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay,
Great.
bye now.
All
Thank
right.
you. Thank you.
Bye,
Ray.
everybody.
Bye, everyone.